Uh, Surya sir, shall we start, sir?
Yeah, start please.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So, namaskar and good morning. So, welcome to the 3 days online training program on telecommunication, radio, and social media in disaster management, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Department of Telecommunication, Ministry of Telecommunication, from 4th to 6th November 2020. Myself, Raju Thapa, YPGMR Division, and I will be the moderator of today's session. The growing multi-hazard environment to which millions of people in the world are exposed highlights the importance of making sure that the affected population is increasingly better prepared. Unplanned urbanization and industrialization, population expansion, environmental degradation, climate change, construction, development in high-risk zone, even the changing demographics and social economic condition, they all increases the vulnerability of India to disaster. The combination of human and economic losses together with the reconstruction cost makes natural disaster both a humanitarian and an economic problem. But in any disaster event, communication is a core component and it plays a very crucial role in rescue, response, and recovery operation. Media forges a direct link between the public and emergency organizations, and it play a very important role in disseminating the vital information to the public before, during, and after disaster. Telecommunication, mass media such as newspaper, television, radio, community radio, internet, and even social media nowadays are used quite extensively in all these different phases of disaster for broadcasting and dissemination of information. The media assist in the management of disaster by educating the public about disaster, warning of hazards, and even gathering and transmitting informations about public to specific needs. So this training program is also the need of the hour, as there is a need to focus on the promotion of efficient, safe, and resilient communication environment for emergencies and disaster situation, better linkage, coordination and cooperation stakeholders and medias for exchange of ideas. So during this training program, we will be joined by distinguished speakers who will be sharing their knowledge and wisdom with us. Today's session will begin with inaugural session, which will be followed by technical session. In the inaugural session, Sri Chandra Sekhar, DDG, DM Department of Telecommunication, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindalji, VSM, Executive Director NIDM, and Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, will grace the training program. And Sri SS Jain, Director DM from Department of Telecommunication, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, YP NIDM, will share their knowledge and experience in the technical session. So to start with our program, I will request Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division NIDM, who is the chair of this 3-day training program, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Raju. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. Good morning to all and welcome to our program, 3 days online training on telecommunication, radio and social media in disaster management. We are focusing on these three important areas because normally in our experiences in disaster situations, communication is the first link that gets disrupted and failed. And that actually causes lapse and lag in response to the disaster situations, resulting in higher casualties and more adverse consequences. So therefore, the importance of communication, particularly telecommunication, is very, very important because the people in the area which has been affected by any disaster are already victimized and suffering from that disaster situation. So the information need to be communicated timely so that adequate response can be given and those people can be helped out timely. We have a concept of golden hours in disaster management. The first 72 hours are considered to be a period when maximum number of lives can be saved. However, in case the communication fails and there is no redundancy, this we will not be able to achieve. So therefore, we have focused very much on this topic, and our National Disaster Management Authority way back in 2012 actually issued national guidelines for national disaster management information and communication systems, and tried to establish a redundant communication systems not only with the authorities but also into our emergency operation centers, because not only from public to the authority and from authority to the nodal agencies and line department, the communication is very important. So therefore the Department of Telecom also has worked on it to make it sure that the communication survives despite all adverse situation in disaster scenarios. So we will be learning from them. And in this inaugural program, we have been joined by Shri Chandrasekhar ji, DDG, Disaster Management with Department of Telecom. I welcome him on behalf of NIDM and on my personal behalf for sparing his precious time and joining with us in this inaugural program. I am also would like to welcome Shri Sudeep Jain and other speakers from All India Radio and Vigyan Prasar, who have, as well as DOT, who have joined with us in these 3 days online training program. I also extend my personal warm welcome to all the participants, without whom this program, 3 days program, would not have been successful, for sparing their valuable times and joining and taking interest in this training program. We, I hope, would be able to actually share information related to all these fields, how our public radio communication systems have been working. We have been joined by none other than the renowned expert in this area, Shri Rajiv Shukla ji from All India Radio, who had been officer on special duty for disaster management and was very actively involved in policy making for disaster management with All India Radio on disaster management. So we are joined with very good experts, and our young professionals will also share their knowledge and experiences gathered through their hard work in this field. So with these words, I would say that it's a time when we have to learn how to make use of technologies as well as the traditional means. Not only technologies, even traditional means of communication have to be in place, which has been practiced in the old times as well, which remain there. So they may not require any sensors or electronics or any equipments. Maybe it's a manual communications or signal communications. Like on the old times, they used to lit fire to indicate there is a danger in a particular place, or a smoke indicating the fire in some particular place. So these are indicators, or a red flag they used to put up, which were actually signals which need to be adapted also. But now in international levels, we have a common alert protocol system into which we have defined color codes and also the early warning signs, and along with color coding, that what kind of actions are to be required in a given disaster situations. So with these words, I would say that we have to learn from the disasters and from our shortcomings that we have experienced in the past, and reduce those gaps and shortcomings to become stronger in order to deal with the challenges of disaster situations and the issues and dimensions of disasters that are reflected in their occurrences. So with these words, I would say nature tries to awaken you and tries to actually alert us, and we have to learn from the past disasters, as been pointed out in our Prime Minister's 10-point agenda also, that we have to learn from the recent and the past disasters and take the lessons learned in our future implications for achieving disaster risk reduction and resilience. किसी शायर ने कहा है कि जगाना आता है उसे कई तरीकों से, दरों पर दस्तक देने खुदा नहीं आता, पड़े रहो सहमे हुए यूं ही, पड़े रहो सहमे हुए यूं ही, अगर हवाओं के पर बांधना नहीं आता. So I would say that let's try to learn how to tame disaster rather than being tamed by them. With these words, I welcome each and everyone and hope this 3 days training program would be beneficial to all of you with the experiences, sharing of knowledge, information, and innovations, ideas from the experts. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Rajesh.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful inaugural address. Now, moving on, I am very humbled to request Sri Chandrasekhar, DDG, DM, Department of Telecommunication, to take on the stage and grace the occasion with his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible and visible.
Good morning to all the eminent experts present in this gathering of lustrous luminaries, right from Indian Army to press, AIR, and Department of Telecommunication. My greetings to Major General Manoj Bindal, Professor Surya Prakash, my colleagues from DOT, Mr. Jain, Mr. Meena, faculty members from NIDM, and all the guest experts, and to all the participants who are the beneficiary of this program, which is being jointly hosted by Department of Telecommunication and NIDM. It's a virtual program for 3 days, as I've been told. I was going through the complete details of this 3 days program, and I noticed that all the topics which are being covered, especially by the eminent people who have dealt with these situations and who got in-depth knowledge of the subject. It's a great pleasure to have such a program being organized by two of us. And I'm sure I'd urge the participants not to miss any session, because each and every session which is being covered here is going to be very, very important and will be taken up by respective experts in their areas. So, and I feel personally very much privileged being part of this program, and thankful to NIDM for giving me the opportunity to be a co-host. Now, touching the very basics of the disaster, there are two words which are hazards and disaster. Now, they look similar when we speak, but when we go deeper into it, the hazard is the seed of disaster. In other words, it is the spark of the catastrophe. It's an event which can be either natural or man-made. And if not handled properly, timely, effectively, efficiently, then it may result into disaster, causing enormous loss of life and property. The occurrence of disaster may not necessarily result, occurrence of hazard may not result into disaster. But we also know that hazards cannot be stopped, cannot be avoided. But their impact in the form of disaster can be limited, can be controlled, or even can be avoided. That is where the entire study of management of disaster is important. How can we lower the degree of disaster? If we can manage timely prediction and forecasting of the forthcoming disaster, and we put in place an efficient, prompt, effective alert mechanism, followed by swift and efficient rescue and restoration system, mitigation system, perhaps the degree of the disaster can be largely reduced and controlled. And that's where comes the role of ICT, that is communication technology, information communication technology, and its power, which plays a very, very important role. I would say rather an unmatched, unparalleled role in the pre-disaster as well as post-disaster situations. Medium, as Dr. Surya Prakash said, medium of communication can be any, traditional or even modern. And every mode of communication is equally important, and they go simultaneously. The idea is to adopt any method or combination of methods or all the methods. The requirement is it should be prompt, it should be efficient, it should be effective, and it should be accurate. So that is where the power of ICT lies. We have been using variety of communication methods, right from lighting a torch, as Professor said. Modern methods are TV and radios, and now the social media has also joined into it, which is a very powerful medium of communication as on today, because we can broadcast. It's not only P2P, it is P to many. So, and the beauty is today, with the help of smartphones, most of the people belonging to any segment of the society is connected to it. But the fall side of it, when there is a disaster and if communication is affected, the first thing to be affected is the bandwidth. And when bandwidth is affected, then this power of social media cannot be harnessed because they are data intensive communication mechanism. So that is why all kinds of methods telecommunication comes in place when SMS, cell broadcasting, and similar main means of communications are adopted for alerting the people before the disaster. And subsequently, after the disaster, the rescue management teams, the I think NIDF and such forces they require it, health departments, relief distribution mechanism is all dependent on it. I feel privileged and I feel proud in boasting that I have had the opportunity to guide, drive, and handle 5 disasters, which are mainly cyclones in this country, over the past 2.5 years. The Fani, which happened in Orissa, Vayu, which happened in Gujarat but escaped the coastal areas, Bulbul, which devastated West Bengal, Nisarg, which came in 2019, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Amphan, very recent one, Orissa and West Bengal. I handled them from headquarters as well as from ground zero. I remember vividly when on 5th of June 2018, this Fani came in Orissa. On 6th of June, I was there in the capital city of Bhubaneswar when there was no water, there was no electricity, most of the roads were blocked, and the communication was available in small patches. So no laptop or a computer will function. No air conditioners are at your service in the month of June. And in those conditions, in a matter of 5 days, we could manage to guide, drive, and persuade with the help of state government to resurrect the entire telecommunication network up to a level of 70-75%. So had the telecommunication network been robust, perhaps the degree of difficulty faced by the rescue agencies, relief distribution agencies, would have been much minimized. And that's why I feel there is a need to rewrite the specifications for the telecom network elements, particularly in the disaster prone areas. Suppose there are mobile towers, the battery backup should be larger. Normally, the battery backup is for about 8 hours or so. So it should have batteries which can last longer. It should essentially have gensets. But I witnessed in Puri, there was a genset, but because of the rainfall, the genset got flooded and it could not start and function. So the genset also should be waterproof. They should be kept in such buildings. Buildings should be so designed so that there is minimum damage to the buildings as such. The towers, the largest damage which is caused to the towers, which are ground-based towers as well as there are rooftop towers. So far the towers which are put by the telecom industry, they can withstand some less than 200 km/h of wind speed. But when it goes higher, say in case of Fani and in case of super cyclone which took place sometimes before that, the wind speed went as high as 260 km/h. So those specifications are to be redesigned. There is a committee constituted in the Department of Telecommunication involving the research organizations and other units, where it is working for redefining the specification of telecom network elements in the disaster prone area. So with this, the modern time, the Common Alert protocol has come in place. Our speakers will be talking about it. Our speakers will be talking about those specifications also in the time to come during these 3 days. This program, I'm sure, is going to bring lot of knowledge will be disseminated with the help of these speakers. And the participants here who are key elements in the management of the disaster across the country will be largely benefited. I wish a great success to this training program, and I once again request the participants not to miss any topic during these 3 days, because each one of them is going to be very, very important. So with this, I thank you very much. I thank the organizers here and wish them all the success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful words. Sir rightly highlighted that the information and communication technologies, ICTs, play a very significant role in disaster prevention or mitigation, response, and recovery. The timely, predictable, and effective information is much needed by the government agencies and also the other humanitarian actors involved in rescue operation and decision-making processes. India's zero casualty approach to manage extreme weather event is a major contribution to the implementation of the Sendai framework and the reduction of losses of life for such event. Thank you, sir, for being with us and making out some time, sir, from your busy schedule. Thank you very much, sir. So with that, we have come one more announcement. The ED NIDM Manoj Kumar Bindal could not join us because of his some urgent meeting, but he has sent us his best wishes for this training program, and we hope he will join us in the concluding sessions of this training program. So moving ahead, now moving on to the technical session, there will be presentation from a resource person, and after each presentation, we will have some question answer sessions. Now, all the participants, your active participation is very important to us. Kindly use the question answer chat box window to raise your question. And also a few important announcement that the same link will be used for all the 3 days of the training program. And that there is the feedback form for the training program won't be, it will be shared on the last date of the training program. So kindly avoid spamming the chat box asking for feedback form. Telecommunication services play a very important role in minimizing the impact of disaster on life, property, environment, and economy through prompt provisioning and restoration of telecommunication services. So for our first presentation, we have with us Sri S.S. Jain, Director, DM, Department of Telecommunication. Sri S.S. Jain is from Indian Engineering Services 93 batch, belonging to the Post and Telecommunication Engineering cadre. He has worked at responsible position in various capacities with Department of Telecommunication, ranging from assistant executive engineer to superintendent engineer. He is having vast experience of dealing with installation of vital telecommunication infrastructure and handling of disaster. He has played a pivotal role in implementing a national cyclone risk mitigation project during his tenure with NDMA. At present, he is working as Director, handling disaster management with Department of Telecommunication. With these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Sri S.S. Jain, sir. Over to you, sir. Jain, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Thank you, Thapaji. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible and your presentation is visible.
Okay. Good morning to all of you, and hope all of you are keeping good health, hale and hearty. And please do take care, do take care of yourself and your families during these pandemic times. So during this presentation, I am going to keep focus on preparedness and response to the disasters by Department of Telecommunication, Ministry of Communication. As we all know that communication plays a very vital role prior to disaster, during disaster, and post disaster. So during this presentation, my outline of this presentation is going to be that first I am going to focus on standard operating procedure. Then I will be focusing on the response provided to Cyclone Amphan and Cyclone Nisarga by Department of Telecommunication. Then technology tools like priority call routing and tracking of missing persons are going to be discussed. We all know that India is highly disaster prone due to its geographical and climatic condition. And further, this our expanding population, urbanization, and industrialization has added to the vulnerability of the country. Now, what happens during disaster and post disaster? We all know that there is a great loss to the life and property. During recent disasters, what we have noticed that two of the important sectors which are very crucial for restoration of activity, life, etc., are affected in the worst possible manner. These sectors are power and telecom. Now, during disaster and post disasters, naturally, we require a good telecommunication network, a good communication network, so that we are able to provide effective response to the disaster. And and telecommunication and communication network is going to is helps us during search and rescue also. Now, naturally, the question which comes to our mind is, what is the need for SOP? Now, any ministry, any department which is going to play a pivotal role during disasters, prior to disaster and post disaster, has to have a SOP so that an effective response is provided during the disaster. Now, SOP is required as per the National DM Policy 2009, as well as there are directives from Ministry of Home Affairs that every ministry, every department should have a standard operating procedure. As per our National Telecom Policy 2012 also, uh, we have to prepare a sectoral SOP to provide effective response to disasters. So, in line with these requirements, Department of Telecommunication has come out, has finalized a standard operating procedure 2017 after having wide consultations with different stakeholders. The stakeholders are Operators Association of India, different telecom service providers, as well as we had deliberations with National Disaster Management Authority and Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, this SOP is also available on our website. This SOP was approved by none other than our Honorable Minister of Communication and IT. Now, let me switch over to certain key aspects of this SOP. Let me talk first about the institutional arrangement at national level, at state level, to provide coordination prior to disaster, during disaster, and post disaster. So, at national level, there is a provision of National Telecom Disaster Communication Committee, which is headed by Member Technology Digital Communication Commission, Department of Telecommunication. Now, this committee is supported by different experts and different cells of disaster of Department of Telecommunication, DDG Disaster Management, Department of Telecom works as convener for this committee. Naturally, this committee cannot be effective until unless it has got representation from Ministry of Home Affairs, National Disaster Management Authority, as well as from telecom service providers. This committee issues guidelines time to time for effective response to disasters. Now let me talk what is being done at the state level. At state level, we do have a State Telecom Disaster Coordination Committee, which is headed by DDG Technology of the concerned field unit of DOT. DOT is having presence in all the states of the country, and this State Telecom Disaster Coordination Committee is also having representation from state disaster management authorities as well as local unit of the NDRF. Now, this committee is plays a pivotal role during management of disasters. Some of the roles which comes to my mind right now, let me share with you. Like in case of cyclones and all, prior to landfall, they do have proper coordination with state government through which they are able to identify the priority sites for restoration of telecom network if the network gets affected, as well as they identify uh, petrol pumps or diesel stations through which the petrol or diesel can be arranged on priority, as well as along with that they also identify the transportation routes for the key telecom network elements. So by using these management techniques, they are able to respond to disasters in effective manner. Now let me talk about different mitigation and preparedness measures as per the SOP being taken by different telecom service providers. Naturally, mitigation and preparedness are equally important. So it starts with physical safety of various infrastructure elements. So, like various telecom buildings, while the construction is being done, they have to follow different building safety norms. The plinth naturally has to be kept above the highest flood level of that area. All the critical elements are not concentrated in one building, and adequate fire protection measures are being taken by different telecom service providers. Now, in telecom networks, we have to take due care of the redundancy. So, whenever any important network elements are being planned by telecom service providers, they generally follow ring network or mesh network to provide continuity even in case of disasters. Similarly, in case of hilly areas, they rely upon satellite connectivity also. All the telecom service providers have to have a disaster management plan so that they are able to identify the vulnerable elements in their telecom network. Similarly, these telecom service providers, they have to keep sufficient spares with them, sufficient fuel in reserve with them, sufficient on-site spares with them, as well as they have to take sufficient adequate overload prevention measures so that to avoid congestion during disasters. Now, further adding to the preparedness by TSPs during disasters. Now, during disasters, they should be ready with disaster response task force. Now, if let me share with you experience of handling cyclone Fani, cyclone Amphan, and cyclone Nisarga. During this cyclone, first casualty was the OFC cut. Now, OFC cut to restore the so many multiple OFC cuts, you have to have sufficient transmission teams, sufficient OFC jointing teams available with you. So these teams are kept ready by telecom service providers. Now these teams maybe are having experts from switching side, having experts from infrastructure side, from mobile side, as well as telecom, as well as to provide telecom relief. Sometimes these teams are being tasked, being assigned to open PCOs if the communication has to be provided in the affected area. Along with this, TSPs also keep damage assessments teams ready with them to assess the damage, quantum of damage in case of disasters, as well as to find out the quantum of machinery and equipments which may be imported from the area which are not affected due to disasters to the area which is affected by the disaster. So all these planning and management is being done by rapid damage assessment teams. Similarly, this telecom service providers, they do keep a resource center in in states so that all necessary equipments spares are kept at one site through which they are able to mobilize these equipments at a quick pace. Such type of equipment, the equipments which are kept with such type of stores are different types of satellite terminals, satellite phones, portable mobile sites which are called BTS based transceiver stations, cable OFC cable jointing kits, tool kits, portable diesel generator sets, portable batteries, etc. Other than this, all the telecom service providers should have memorandum of understanding to implement intra-circle roaming. Now, this intra-circle roaming is a very useful tool during disasters and post-disaster. Suppose if I am a citizen in the disaster affected area, and the tower to which I am latched gets affected due to disaster, then in that case, through intra-circle roaming provision, I am allowed to latch to tower of any other telecom service provider operating in that area. Suppose I am in Odisha in a district and I am carrying mobile of Airtel, and my and telecom network of Airtel is affected due to disaster. Then in that case, I am going to be allowed to latch to any network of any of the service provider. So I may latch to network of Geo or BSNL depending upon their signal strength. Due emphasis is also being given by different telecom service providers to conduct mock drills on quarterly basis. Now, prior to disaster, when the information regarding disaster is received from the alert generating agencies, then we make our control rooms functional at state level as well as central level to monitor different emergency operations, to facilitate coordination amongst different departments, to provide instructions to all concerned, to disseminate alert warnings to all concerned, to get the report from the field units, as well as to provide managerial inputs to higher ups. Now, these are some of the photographs taken during Cyclone Amphan and Cyclone Nisarga. It clearly shows that how the towers, telecom towers, sometimes, in spite of all the safety provisions, they do get damaged. Towers are uprooted, and the fueling operations being done at the mobile sites. Now, this is how the basic response is being provided at the national level and at the state level. So what is being done at the national level is that we invoke standard operating provision of the Department of Telecommunication, and with that we start convening meetings of National Telecom Disaster Coordination Committee with different telecom service providers and other stakeholders. In a similar manner, the meetings of State Telecom Disaster Coordination Committee is convened at state level, and along with that, the different telecom service providers, they start arranging their portable BTS equipments. They start uh, deployment of their different types of teams, starting from disaster response task force to damage assessment teams, etc. During sometimes post disasters, we do need to find out locations of the missing person also. So for that purpose also, necessary instructions are being passed on to the telecom service providers. Now, what is being done during disasters and post disasters? The telecom service providers, if the telecom network is affected, then they do open sufficient number of PCOs. Generally, the calls are being made through these PCOs on no cost basis. They allow intra-circle roaming also based upon the instructions being issued from Department of Telecommunication. After analyzing the need of such type of steps, and if the telecom network is affected. Uh, Sometimes, depending upon the need and the status of the network, the SMS, alert SMS have to be issued by the have to be disseminated by the telecom service providers, and which are made free of cost for a definite period of time, as per the instructions issued by the Department of Telecommunication. If the towers and network gets affected, then at that time the telecom service providers are being allowed to radiate more power from their telecom towers, from their antennas, for a definite period of time. As well as the telecom service providers are instructed to provide alerts through SMS or through cell broadcast at regular intervals, and they also open helpline numbers through which the public is able to contact them. Now, these are some of the photographs of the damaged towers, uprooted towers. Now, let me just share with you the response provided during Cyclone Amphan and Cyclone Nisarga by Department of Telecommunication. Cyclone Amphan made landfall in West Bengal on 20th of May with a wind speed of around 165 kilometers, gusting up to 185 kilometers. Now, eight districts in the West Bengal were the worst affected area, and due to this cyclone, the telecom network in these eight districts were affected to the extent of 60%. So prior to the cyclone, we started conducting meetings with telecom service providers to make them aware about the impending disaster, and so that they are able to take all necessary preventive measures accordingly. Due to this proactive response provided by Department of Telecom, about 80 to 100 teams were deployed by these telecom service providers in the affected area, and due to this approach only, we could make the telecom network functional to the extent of 95% within 9 days of disaster. During this time, 37.5 lakhs free SMS was sent to the public to provide them idea about different initiatives or different relief measures being provided by the government of West Bengal or government of Odisha. Similarly, the ICR facility was also activated for a brief period of time, which benefited approximately 16 lakhs customers in the disaster affected districts. Now, let me switch over to Cyclone Nisarga, made landfall on 3rd of June with a wind speed of approximately 110 kilometers per hour, gusting to 120 kilometers per hour. 5 districts of Maharashtra were affected. Telecom network was affected to the extent of 32%. But again, due to proactive approach of Government of India, the telecom network was made functional to the extent of 98% within 5 days. Now, during this period, to create awareness in the public, approximately 2 crore alert messages were sent by different telecom service providers free of cost. And for a brief period, we activated intra-circle roaming facility, which and approximately 2.25 lakhs customers benefited utilizing this facility. Now, let me talk quickly about few of the technology tools which are being used during disasters to respond to the disasters in effective manner. First one is priority call routing. Let me share with you my experience of Bhuj earthquake at this time. On 26th of January, I was in Bhuj and I was very close to the epicenter of the earthquake. So post earthquake, I was not able to make any call to any of our officers in Department of Telecommunication or BSNL for next 12 hours. The reason was that the affected region or the Gujarat state was getting calls from all over the country to know about the well-being. Naturally, public, all the people start calling uh, so that they are able to find safety of their near and dear ones. This resulted into congestion of the telecom network. Now, to avoid such type of happenings in the future, the priority call routing has been implemented by different telecom service providers. So if any state governments is ready with the list. So ready with the list of the priority numbers, then this list may be passed on to the telecom service providers, and they do activate priority call routing on these numbers, so that if any call is made on these numbers, that call gets matured. Now, now the priority call numbers may be the number of the responsible persons, number of the primary responders, number of responsible officers from government, and various officials from the state government like chief minister, NDRF team, district collector, SP, and different teams dealing with the disaster management. So this is how priority call routing helps to avoid congestion in the telecom network, and the calls to the primary responders get matured. And this is one of the technological tool which is available with different telecom service providers now. And this tool was used extensively uh, in the aftermath of Kedarnath tragedy in 2013. As per Section 5(2) of Indian Telegraph Act, the location of the person can be identified, can be tracked on the instructions of Union Home Secretary or State Home Secretary. During disasters, depending on the level of disaster, depending upon the nature of disaster, for 2 weeks, the CDRs, call data records, call detail records of the persons affected or the persons missing during disasters or post disasters can be provided to the state government. And this system of identifying of identifying location of the missing person is having accuracy of approximately 100 meters to 2.5 kilometers, depending upon the nature of technology being used by different telecom service providers. But naturally, when the disasters happen in large area, with this accuracy, lot of help can be provided to the state government authorities. So these are the various measures being taken by Department of Telecommunication to provide response to the disasters and to help various state government authorities at state level as well as to provide help at the central level. Now, what naturally the question which comes to our mind is what we have learned from these disasters. Now, naturally, the we need to improve our coordination and liaison with various state governments. And in fact, prior to the disasters, list of important sites from state government point of view should be known to all the telecom service providers. All the telecom service providers should know in advance which are the petrol pumps, diesel filling stations from which they would be able to get the diesel during disasters and post disasters. Similarly, the redundancy within the telecom network has to be improved, and this aspect should be kept into mind while designing various networks. And the intra-circle roaming aspect also need to be tested in advance so that its effectiveness is known, and if any glitches are there, they may be resolved prior to disaster. And lot of work has to be done regarding right of way rules and sharing of infrastructure by different infrastructure infrastructure sectors like roads, urban, and power sectors. So these are some of the lessons learned. In addition to it, one very relevant point which was highlighted by DDG Disaster Management also, that the specifications in the disaster prone areas for telecom service providers also need to be strengthened. So the towers which are being planned to be installed in the areas of Odisha and Andhra Pradesh have to be more robust in nature compared to the towers which are being planned to be installed in the less vulnerable states like Rajasthan, etc. So, lot of work is to be done in this direction also, and Department of Telecommunication has taken this initiative and is working in this direction so that India is able to become a disaster resilient nation. So, with this word, let me finish my presentation and my talk. Thanks for a patient hearing. Looking forward to questions from your side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation and giving a details of standard operating procedure for telecommunication services for responding to disaster, which has the mission to minimize the impact of disaster on life, property, environment, and the economy through prompt provisioning and restoration of telecom services in the disaster affected areas. Sir, there are a few questions, sir, that I would like to take, sir. The first question is from Kamal Deeps, sir. Then he asks, sir, why quality of services are not assured in emergency or disaster?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Look, yeah, you have very rightly pointed out that there are some issues with the quality of services during disasters. Now, there may be a number of reasons behind that. Naturally, the telecom networks do have a capacity, and whenever any disaster happens, then at that time there is flooding of telecom network by by calls from different parts of the country. That also affects the telecom network to some extent. For that, the solution is priority call routing, as we have already discussed. Other than that, look, telecom sector is having some dependence on power sector also, and we do keep spares of battery of power backup in the form of battery and in the form of diesel at telecom sites. But naturally, these sites are having a small space available with them, and these reserves also do have some capacity. Like in case of DG sets, etc., diesel generator sets, they can be run continuously only for 8 hours. Similarly, these batteries also they do have got limited capacity. Now, if we want to invest more in fuel and battery, naturally it requires lot of it is going to have a lot of implications, financial implications for telecom service providers. But as you have rightly pointed out, a lot has to be done in this regard, and a middle part has to be chosen, that how much of spares, how much of reserves are to be kept at each and every telecom site, so that so that quality of service is not affected to that extent.
So one more question is from Dr. Mano Prakash. He asks, sir, any training is provided to the locals with regard to the telecommunication during a disaster? Like he mean to say, sir, other than the employee, whether the public they are trained for handling such situation from DOT side, sir?
We do have a training center, a full-fledged training center with us at Ghaziabad. There they do provide trainings to the college students, but mostly the government officials are being trained over there. As far as public is concerned, naturally the awareness in the public is a must. But and the public, they can definitely take part in the mock drills being conducted by the telecom service providers, which are being done in a quarterly basis, on a quarterly basis, in coordination with state disaster management authorities. Now, state disaster management authorities, they remain in touch with the public to a larger scale. So whenever such mock drills are being conducted by telecom service providers, if the public become a part of it, they would be able to understand the various measures being taken by telecom service providers, and they would be able to understand how to respond to the disasters in a better manner.
Yes, sir. So talking about the SDMA, sir, there is one question, very interesting question from Dharmesh. He says, sir, that during the Hudhud cyclone, sir, in 2014, the SDMA official network, it worked very well for the around 8 to 12 hours. But his own personal 3G network, it was not working. Like, is there, sir, anything different for the SDMAs or the officials, sir? He want to know, sir, something like that.
No, naturally, as I discussed with you that at State Telecom Disaster Coordination Committee level, we have to have proper coordination with the State Disaster Management Authority. Now, SDMA, as far as disasters are concerned, they do have the final word in the states. So if they identify their office or certain other locations as priority sites, so that can be taken that can be taken care of by telecom service providers, as well as power for these sites can also be restored on priority basis. And for certain states like Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, which are highly disaster prone, and I think in case of cyclone Hudhud, the speed was somewhere around 200 plus 215 kmph. So this affected telecom network to a large extent. So such type of situations, SDMAs are have some of the SDMAs they do keep satellite phones available with them. So the satellite phones have to be kept in properly charged conditions and have to be kept functional for to meet such type of eventualities. As well as this requires proper coordination between SDMA and local field office of Department of Telecommunication.
Thank you, sir. And the last question, sir, are there any automatic alert system during disaster to like that will give alert to all mobile users, or are any future prospective like initiatives that are coming up from DOT, sir?
No, already this initiative has been taken by Department of Telecommunication, which is going to be covered by Mr. Shrifal Meena later on, I think on 6th of
Yes, sir.
November, which is called Common Alert Protocol Based Alert Dissemination System. So already we have done one pilot project for the state of Tamil Nadu, and during this COVID times, during last 6 months, we have sent more than 300 crore SMS, which are area-specific SMS, location-based SMS, free of cost through different telecom service providers using this platform. This is to make public aware about different initiatives taken by the government, like if any COVID testing facility has come up in a particular area, then the information has to be passed on to that particular area only. So for that purpose, the area specific SMS are being sent by through this platform, and already all SDMAs have been roped in into the system. So SDMAs are already a part of it. The content of the message is being finalized by SDMAs, and then the message is being passed on through local DOT field units to the telecom service providers.
Sir, thank you so much, sir, for your presentation and taking so many questions, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So now moving ahead, the need early warning system and its dissemination in disaster management has been realized internationally. Various international agreements represents a major turning point in the global effort to tackle existing and future challenges in all countries. To discuss this on more detail, we are joined by Dr. Harjeet Kaur, who will be talking about the integrating Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, sustainable development goal, climate change adaptation, new urbanization agendas, and PM 10-point agenda. Dr. Harjeet Kaur is working as a young professional in National Institute of Disaster Management, India. She is currently working in Coastal Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience Center in GMR Division. Prior to this, she has worked in landslide risk management in Gangtok, Sikkim. Dr. Harjeet Kaur has published over 20 research publications in reputed international journals. She is recipient of number of awards, fellowships, and professional recognition such as Young Scientist Award, Gold Medalist in Undergraduate and PG Studies, Inspire Fellowships, and so on, and many more. With these words, I would like to pass on the stage to Dr. Harjeet Kaur. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raju, for a nice introduction. Uh, just give me a second. I'll share my PPT. It's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, as this is our mandate to fight against COVID-19 pandemic, wear your mask properly, wash your hand with soap and water, avoid touching eyes, nose and mouth, keep social distancing and clean surface regularly. 2 गज की दूरी और मास्क है जरूरी. No careless until there is a cure. So today's topic Today's topic is on SFDRR, Sendai framework, climate change adaptation, and SDG and Prime Minister 10-point agenda. So as we all know that the number and severity of natural disaster is rising as the climate undergoes changes. And as the world's population continues to increase, this trend is exhibited by the population clustering in vulnerable areas, by the degradation of the environment, and by the expansion of the areas at the risk due to climate change. As per the report from UN Office, Center for Research and Epidemiology of Disaster, uh, since in 1995, floods have accounted for 47% of all weather-related disasters, affecting 2.3 billion people. These data were taken from EMDAT, and the Emergency Event Database is a free and fully searchable database that contains worldwide data on the occurrence and impact of over 20,000 natural and technological disasters from 1900 to the present day. When we consider top 10 countries affected by the weather-related disasters, India positioned in second after China with about 805 million affected people. In India, the concept of disaster management has evolved from an activity-based arrangement or a setup on purely temporary basis. In the initial stage, the arrangement or the setup was simply reactive. Gradually, it becomes a proactive, institutionalized structure from a relief-based approach to a multi-dimensional, proactive, holistic approach. Let us quickly go through the important milestone that took place with respect to disaster risk reduction. The UN General Assembly designated the 90s as the International Decade for the Natural Disaster Risk Reduction. In 1994, that is here, the first World Conference on Natural Disaster was endorsed by the UN General Assembly in Yokohama, Japan for a safer world, giving guidelines for the natural disaster prevention, preparedness, and mitigation. Then, in 1999, the International Strategies for Disaster Risk Reduction that was adopted during the 1999 Program Forum held in July in Geneva. Then in 2005, Hyogo Framework for Action. This is the 10-year plan to make the world safer from the natural hazards, and at the World Conference on the Disaster Reduction held in Kobe, Hyogo, Japan. The Hyogo Framework was the global blueprint for the disaster risk reduction efforts between 2005 to 2015. Then last, this one is the Sendai Framework from 2015 to 30. This is the successor instrument to the Hyogo Framework for the action in the Sendai city, Japan, UN. Now, this Million Development Goal, MDGs, were 8 international development goals for the year 2015 that had been established following the Millennium Summit of an United Nations in 2000, following the adoption of the United Nations Million Declaration. The Sustainable Development Goals succeed the MDG in 2016. We will discuss this in detail in the presentation. Then, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, is an international environmental treaty adopted on 9th May 1992 and opened for the signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro from 3 to 14 June 1992, and the Paris Agreement is an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on the Climate Change dealing with the greenhouse gases, emission mitigation, adaptation, and finance signed in 2016. We will discuss this also in detail. Now, the Sendai Framework. The post-2015 goals and agenda are the set forth in the three landmark global agreements reached in 2015, the Sendai Framework for the Disaster Risk Reduction, Sustainable Development Goal, and Climate Change Agreement. These three documents set the stage for the global action on the DRR, Sustainable Development and Climate Change. So here in the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, adopted on 18th March 2015 by the representation from 187 UN member states gathered at Third World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, Sendai, Japan. The Sendai framework builds on the knowledge and experience of all the stakeholders across public and private sector. It builds on 10 years of work with the Hugo framework for action and nearly 3 years of consultations. Today we have a practical framework that will guide our actions for the next 15 years. This Sendai framework shows a various improvement as compared to Hugo framework, and this is shift from disaster loss to disaster risk. Shift from what to do to how to do. Focus on people-centered prevention approach to DRR, primary responsibility of states for DRR, shared responsibilities for DRR with stakeholders. Sendai framework, this is the chart out of 4 priorities for the action for achieving its goal. First one is the understanding disaster risk. It states that disaster risk management should be based on an understanding of disaster risk in all its dimensions. Such knowledge can be used for risk assessment, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and response. Second is the strengthening disaster risk governance to manage disaster risk. The disaster risk governance at the national, regional, and global level is a very important for the prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, and rehabilitation. It leads to collaboration and partnership. Then the third one priority is the investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. Public and private investment in disaster risk prevention and reduction through structural and non-structural measures are essential to enhance the economic, social, health, and cultural resilience of persons, communities, countries, and their assets, as well as the environment. The fourth and last priority is enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better. The growth of disaster risk means there is a need to strengthen disaster preparedness for response, take in anticipation of events, and ensure capacities are in place for effective response and recovery at all levels. The recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction phase is a critical opportunity to build back better, including through integrating disaster risk reduction into development measures. To support the assessment of global progress in achieving the outcome and goal of the present framework, 7 global targets have been agreed. These 7 targets will be measured at the global level, and there are 4 reduction oriented targets and 3 increase oriented targets. The NDMA, that is National Disaster Management Authority, prepared the update and revised National Disaster Management Plan in 2019. How this SFDRR priorities in implemented for India. So you can check through the NDMP plan in 2019. The updated NDMP is an improvement over the earlier version. This plan will enhance the understanding of stakeholders on disaster risk and will further strengthen our capacity to recover in the wake of natural disaster, taking forward the country's agenda for achievement of targets set under the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. This is our NDMP plan 2019. You can download this plan from NDMA website. This disaster management plan has also focused on achieving a coherence with other international agreements such as Sustainable Development Goal and Paris Agreement on Climate Change. The period of this agreement coincide with SFDRR. This coherence will result in ensuring sustainable and climate resilient development that will ultimately reduce the disaster risk. Now, Millennium Development Goals 2005 to 15. Before we discuss the Sustainable Development Goal, that is SDGs, we must understand how it come into being. And at the beginning of new millennium in 2000, world leaders gathered at the UN to shape a broad vision to fight poverty in its many dimensions. The United Nations Millennium Declaration signed in September 2000 commits world leaders to combat poverty, hunger, disease, illiteracy, environmental degradation, and discrimination against women. The MDGs are derived from this declaration and all have a specific target and indicators. There were some significant achievements, but many people are being left behind. In MDG, like gender inequality persists, big gap exists between the poorest and richest household, rural and urban areas, climate change and environmental degradation undermine any progress achieved. Poor people suffer the most, and millions of people still live in the poverty and hunger without access to basic services. So the new focus was on the concept of sustainable development. Need to consider the relationship between the nature and society and social environment and economic dimension. Now, the sustainable development is a development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. For sustainable development to be achieved, it is crucial to harmonize three core elements: economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. The Sustainable Development Summit was held from 25th to 27th September at UN headquarters in New York. Countries officially adopted the historic new agenda entitled Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was agreed upon by the 193 member states of United Nations and includes 17 development goals. These are SDG 17 goals adopted by the UN General Assembly on 25th September 2015, consisting of 17 goals, global goals, and 169 targets, are universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all the people enjoy peace and prosperity. The 17 goals build on the success of the MDG, that is Millennium Development Goals, while including new areas such as climate change, economic inequality, innovation, sustainable consumption, peace, and justice, among other priorities. And the goals are interconnected. Another way to look at SDGs is the 5 Ps, this one. At the heart of the 2013 agenda are 5 critical dimensions: people, prosperity, planet, partnership, and peace, also known as 5 Ps. The main goal focus on 5 Ps: people, the well-being of all people; planet, protect of earth ecosystem; prosperity, continued economic and technological growth; peace, securing peace; partnership is improving international cooperation. These 5 aspects are interdependent, and therefore the SDG demand integrated thinking as well as integrated approaches to achieving the goals. The 17 goals have been divided among all these 5 Ps. Sorry. This is the 5 Ps, and the pledge that no one will be left behind require a specific focus on the poorest and most vulnerable people, which is a key challenge. There are several targets across the 17 SDGs that are related to the Sendai framework for DRR. Conversely, all 7 global DRR targets of Sendai framework are critical for the achievement of the SDGs. I think I have already discussed this 5P. Just a minute. Yes, this one, the Paris Agreement. Now, already we have discussed the Sendai framework and SDG Sustainable Development Goal. Now, the Paris Agreement that was adopted on 12 September 2015 at the 21st session of the Conference of the Parties, that is also known as the COP21, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held in Paris from 13 November to 13 December. This agreement builds upon the UNFCCC and brings together all the nations into a common cause to undertake ambitious effort to combat climate change and adapt to its effect with enhanced support to assist developing countries to do so. The major goals adopted in the agreement are essentials on adopting the long-term goal of keeping the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, then aim to limit the increase to 1.5%, since this would significantly reduce the risk and the impact of climate change. Accepting the need for the global emissions to peak as soon as possible, recognizing that this will take longer for developing countries, and to undertake the rapid reduction of emission in accordance with best available science. There is a significant convergence between the problems that disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation seeks to address, and the region already exposed to climate-related hazard and effects will be at greater risk due to a projected increase in the frequency and/or intensity of those hazards and effects because of global climate change. The agreement aims to strengthen the ability of countries to deal with the impact of climate change, to reach these ambitious goals, appropriate financial flow, a new technology framework, and enhance the capacity framework will be put in place, thus supporting action by developing countries and the most vulnerable countries in line with their own national objectives. Now, this NDMP has tried NDMP National Disaster Management Plan has tried to complement coherence across the national efforts for DRR, sustainable development, and the action in response to climate change. The mainstream of DRR can be synchronized with the initiative for sustainable development and the step taken to address climate change impact as an inherent part of development agenda. Many of the additional challenges emerging from the climate change impact that act as a hazard risk multiplier and must be integrated into the implementation of the National Disaster Management Plan, and the ideas on ensuring coherence and mutual reinforcement across the global framework on the development disasters and responding to climate change, covering almost every aspect of society and all sector of the economy, are at an early and incipient phases. All these discussions make it quite clear that these tasks cannot be separated from the mainstreaming of risk reduction, although it is an idea that predates the concept of coherence and mutual reinforcement across the global framework. The ideas of the coherence and reinforcement across framework expand the scope of mainstreaming beyond how it was envisaged earlier. The ways in which coherence and mutual reinforcement are envisaged for SDG Sendai framework is depicted in this figure, highlighting climate change and development policies can be mutually enhancing. These three global frameworks, SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, Climate Change Adaptation, all together have created a comprehensive framework to reduce climate and risk vulnerability and increase the resilience. Although the Paris Agreement focused specifically on climate change mitigation and the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction, these agendas all underscore the messages and that it is impossible to have an impact and prompt significant change if solutions are vertical or isolated from others. A transition to a low carbon society, for example, not only mitigates the intensity of changes in the climate, but also indirectly contributes to creating resilient society and economy. For monitoring the progress of Sendai framework under the 7 target, a set of 38 indicators have been listed that must be measured against the period of Hyogo framework for action, that is 2005 to 15, in terms of the percentage change with respect to the baseline. And this sectorial segregated baseline data, the baseline data means the Hyogo framework, will be collated by the Central Ministry, Department of States, UTs, and meanwhile the Niti Aayog has adopted a national indicator framework that is known as NIF, comprising 306 national indicators for monitoring the progress of 17 SDGs, having 169 target, as SFDRR and SDGs have a clear-cut establishment linkages. This NIDM, besides other, include national indicators for various targets focusing specifically on DRR, and the time frame used in the NDMP, that is our National Disaster Management Plan, are co-terminus with the post-2015 global frameworks ending in 2030. I think we are in time. Mr. Thapa?
Ma'am, kindly, you are in time, ma'am, but kindly finish it within 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm just Now the new urban agenda that was adopted at the Equator, October 2016, present a paradigm shift based on the sciences of the cities. It lays out the standards and principles for the planning, construction, development, management, and improvement of the urban areas. The new urban agenda represents a shared vision for a better and more sustainable future, one in which all the people have equal rights and access to the benefits and opportunity that cities can offer, and in which the international community reconsidered the urban systems and physical form of our urban spaces to achieve this. Now the Prime Minister 10-point agenda. Indian Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has outlined a 10-point agenda for efforts toward disaster risk reduction in an address he delivered at the Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in 2016. He emphasized on working towards risk coverage for all, starting from poor household to small and medium enterprises and multinational corporations to nation states. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji said all the development sectors must imbibe the principle of disaster risk management and encourage involvement and leadership of women as they are the biggest sufferer of any disaster. He also spoke of building on local capacity and initiative, ensuring that the opportunity to learn from the disaster is not waste, and bringing about the greater cohesion in national international responses to disaster. And the agenda number 6 of the Prime Minister 10-point agenda also emphasized on the developing a network of university to work on disaster issues. In order to address the capacity, skill and knowledge gap, the agenda 6 stress on the need to develop network of universities to work on the disaster issues as they have social responsibility to. And the National Disaster Management Plan 2019, which is aligned with the Sendai framework for DRR, highlights the vital role of education and the integrations of DRR into the crucial at various levels, besides outlining the role of universities as technical resources. To end my presentation, I would like to say that by the year 2030, India is committed to reduce the disaster impact on life and property to its minimum, and hence given its global commitment for achieving the set target and goals of international agreement by 2030. It's a huge task to be achieved in a very short period of time by building a sustainable system. This is possible only when we build partnership with the different stakeholders and synergize our efforts. Universities, institute can play a major role in shifting the narratives for the disaster risk reduction for the future by its education, research, debate, dialogue, and policy advocacy. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for a wonderful presentation. You have said that the hazard and vulnerability profile of India is not well known. India proneness to multiple disaster caused by natural and human-induced factor. It aggregates by the climate change impact poses many threats and challenges for the community and agency involved in management of disaster. Like you have mentioned, the three global frameworks, Sendai, SFDRRs, SDGs, Paris Agreement, these international agreements, they shouldn't be seen in isolation, like which was very nicely depicted in your presentation. A sustainable development needs to be like disaster resilient and be adaptive to climate change impact. In mind, you have highlighted that the revised plan, that NDMP plan 2019 has put up like with a special emphasizing on the establishing coherence between the three international agreement with special consideration to the 10-point agenda on DRR. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. And since we are running short of time, I will just take one question, ma'am. The question is: are there any assessment process or any assessment committee that check the status or the progress of India in fulfilling the targets that you mentioned, the international target set up under the national global framework?
Thank you, Mr. Raju, for your question. As I have already told in my presentation that in India, Niti Aayog has adopted a national indicator framework comprising of 306 national indicators for monitoring the progress of sustainable development goals target, that is 17 targets with 169 targets, sorry. And for monitoring the progress of Sendai framework, under the 7 target of Sendai framework, set of 38 indicators have been listed that must be measured against the period of the Hugo framework for action, that is 2005 to 15, in terms of the percentage change with respect to the baseline. I have already showed last images from how we can monitor the Sendai framework or SDGs. So I think this will satisfy the query of participants.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presentation and your question answer session. So now I will quickly give the last presentation of today's session. I think, ma'am, you have allotted me the presenter, right? Okay, yes, ma'am, I can see that. So I will be very quickly discussing on the basics of early warning system, early warning and communication, and the SOPs that even giants are highlighted today. So just one second, let me make it full screen. So before I proceed, I consider this as my duty and also mandate to just take a few minutes to spread the message that no carelessness until there is a cure. We must wear our mask properly. We must wash our hand with soap and water. Avoid touching sensitive areas like eyes, nose, and mouth. Keep social distancing and clean surface regularly. So quickly, I will say that it's like disaster. Disaster threatens especially the segment of the population which is more vulnerable, largely because they are both highly sensitive to hazards and also they have very limited capabilities to cope with the resulting impact. Similarly, you can see from the diagram also, this from the UNDP, that usually the low income group, they are more prone to deaths during disaster, and similarly women and children, they are more prone as compared to men during any disaster. And also, if you take about when you consider the vulnerability of India to disaster, like there are like 12% of the land is they are prone to flood, 8% of land they are prone to cyclone. So early warning in such cases, early warning strategy they are the set of measures that are taken to increase the resilience. If they are correctly implemented, early warning system, it can help to reduce the losses of life, property, and it will help to minimize the environmental damage. So there are many examples where public education and the rapid widespread dissemination of early warning has saved thousands of lives. Just take the example of the 1990s, 1977 cyclone in Andhra Pradesh. It killed more than 10,000 people, while a similar storm in the same area 13 years later killed only about 910 people. So this dramatic difference was due to the fact that the new early warning system was connected with the radio stations to alert people in low-lying area that was put in place. So early warning system is rather a very complex process that is aimed to reduce the impact of natural hazard by providing the timely and relevant information in a systematic way. Like Dr. Harjit Kaur has very in detail highlighted about these agreements. So I won't talk much in this, but in all the international agreements, the importance of early warning system has been highlighted. And the question now that comes is, why do we need early warning system? So early warning system is basically there are two reasons basically. The first one clearly is the public safety, and the second one is the protection of human lives. Public safety, pardon me, and the second one is the protection of the national resource base and the productive assets, like such as the infrastructure, such as the economic, like private property, investment. Because if these things are destroyed, it will push us back many years back. So to safeguard this infrastructure, these assets, it's also one of the priority of early warning system. So quickly discussing the component of early warning system, basically there are 4 components, that is risk, knowledge, monitoring and warning, dissemination and communication, and the response capacity. So risk knowledge is nothing, it is a risk is the combination of hazard and vulnerability at a particular location. For this reason also, risk knowledge is the key element of successful early warning knowledge, early warning system. Without knowing the risk, the vulnerability, the hazards that we are exposed to, we cannot plan an early warning system. So this is one of the key factor, you can say, in early warning system. And also when addressing the end user through an early warning system, it is very fundamental that the importance and the potential of the system, as well as to understand the community itself, because we have the message is for the community, so we have to understand the community itself. To achieve this, the public must be informed about the risk and the risk communication channels, where to look for such information, such also the emergency plans. So the second component was the monitoring and warning services, and they are like when we talk about early warning system, this is the first thing that comes to our mind. Like monitoring is the act of collecting information along with a set of like proxy variables, like we collect data for rainfall using rain gauge, or seismic waves for correlated with earthquakes. So this can be done through direct or indirect observations. And also here I would like to add that modern technology, they provide the possibility of compiling data from multiple monitoring sources at a very high speed, creating possible for improving the accuracy and rapidity with which disaster forecast can be produced. One monitoring system is the emerging practice of sourcing data through social media, which was also highlighted in our inaugural session by respected Sekhar sir, that numerous researchers has experimented with exploiting for social media on the form of like built-in smartphone sensors regarding nascent disaster. An example of social in this is the example of the iReact project, which is led by the Italian Researcher and Innovation Center. So similarly, for many countries, historical weather information and monitoring infrastructure already exists, but may belong to like different institutions, like resulting in the fragmentation of monitoring capabilities, as well as reducing the information available when making forecasting. So regular coordination and collaboration is also an important factor. And the warning and dissemination to various users through different means, such as like telephones or telefax or police wireless or internet, websites, radio, TV network, mobile phone, SMS, print media, warning, and also in websites. This is very important part. So, and here I would like to add that community radio also play a very significant role in disaster management through prompt preparedness, warning, and like a rehabilitation program before, during, and after any disaster in the coastal areas. And also, like there is one more important point, that inappropriate communication and dissemination of warning, usually it will result in inappropriate response. So historically, most failure in early warning system occur due to the miscommunication, not equipment or infrastructure failure, further underscoring the gravity of the event. So inappropriate communication and dissemination of warning, usually it has to be tackled up with more and more of mock drills, practices, community activities, etc. Another important step towards an efficient information flow to any institutionalized, clear organization and decision-making process through the assigns of mandates. Like clear roles should be ensured, like warning are provided swiftly without having to circulate through multiple level of administration. Like standard protocols for warning dissemination allow smooth coordination and data exchange among actors, that will be discussed shortly in my upcoming slides. And also the message and information that passes from one level to another, whether vertically or horizontally, should be very clear so that the recipient of the message can act very promptly. So like several authors, they have highlighted that Any warning and messages issued in disaster management should have this basic information that they call it the 5 Ws, that it covered in any warnings issued. That is, who is it about, like what is going to happen, when will it take place, where will it take place, and why will it take place. Sometimes authors also add a sixth questions like how to the list, but and how did it happen actually. So but how can be covered by what, when, or where. So and the last component that should be considered in early warning system is the response capacity. To succeed in in prompting a response to warning, it is very vital that endangered community have trust in the early warning system. In fact, response can be undermined if warning system repeatedly call for action in situation when there are no needed. So therefore, an early warning system should also include routine to minimize false or unnecessary emergency warning. And also response capacity can be enhanced either by increasing public and institutional preparedness or by automating the emergency response. And it is very essential to ensure that the existence of cooperation may prove to be more like effective condition or requisite for coordination. But it does not mean that coordination originally automatically come from the voluntary effect of the group of people. So it has to be achieved through conscious and deliberate effect. So quickly, I will go to the standard operating procedure. Like what are SOPs? Like we have the first presentation, also Jan sir has very nicely given the detailed presentation on SOPs. So actually SOPs is a predefined set of directories, and it is widely used concept by different organizations to guarantee the expected outcome without any error. Like every good quality system is based on its standard operating procedures. In terms of disaster management, a standard operating procedure is a set of written instruction that is to be followed by an organization to mitigate and to manage any disastrous event. So let us quickly see some of the SOPs like this one. The SOPs for training the tropical cyclone. Among all the natural disaster related to water and weather, tropical cyclone are the only one which allows 2 or 3 day time for preparedness measures and advanced action to be taken. Over the year, the IMD has built up a credible cyclone warning system for the country, which uses advanced technologies like automatic weather stations, Doppler weather radars, satellites, radars, numerical weather predictions models, and also the telecommunication system. In the event of an approaching tropical cyclone, IMD informs and warns all the concerned sector in the government, the local population, and the media through a variety of channels. Various component of early warning system for a tropical cyclone. It includes they have their monitoring and prediction. They have their warning organization. They have their warning generation, presentation, and dissemination. They have their coordination with the disaster management authorities, public education also, and reaching out, and also post-event review. All these aspects of the early warning system of tropical cyclone are standardized to improve the efficiency of warning operation. So based on the proneness of cyclone, 96 district has been classified, which consists of 70 district touching the coast and remaining 24 lying within the 100 meter. So these are the different degree of proneness that has been classified by IMD. And if you see the color code for the warning of cyclone, they have 4 color code where 4 stages: no warning, green, yellow, orange, and red. Similarly, one more area, like in the world where this technology increasingly play a very leading role in almost every sector, the availability of technological tools for risk communication and dissemination are increasing in both in quality and also in numbers. So alongside the traditional early warning information and communication technology, like the audible siren, radio, TV, SMS, or emails, the rapid spread of smartphones has increased the access to internet-based tools such as mobile application and website. Such a mobile application offers the opportunity of distributing messages that not only they will warn about the impending hazards. Now, some social media platform, example the Facebook, has also integrated risk warning function. And like there are few apps, I think I don't know how many of us like we have heard of this, like they are available, the IMD, they are running this app, but most of us, we still don't have idea about that. Suppose the Mosam app, it's a mobile app of the IMD, to provide seamless and user friendly access to weather product. Also the Meghdut, it's also a joint initiative of IMD and IITM, Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, and ICAR also, to deliver critical information to farmers through a simple and easy to use mobile application. And also similarly the Damini app. The Damini Lightning app is delivered by IITM Pune and ESSO. The app is it is monitoring and all lightning activity which are happening in specifically for India, and it alert you if lightning is happening near you by GPS notification under 20 kilometer. So the TN Smart also a very good example, mobile app that has been introduced by the Tamil Nadu Disaster Management Authority to disseminate alert, and it will be like linked to an alarm system to all registered mobile. So even the Arogya Setu, I think all of us have heard of, and we will be discussing about this on our third day of the training program. So mobile technology provide a very good opportunity. However, there is a need to come up with a one-stop solution that offer fast, easy, accessible, user-friendly, and also most comprehensive disaster-related notification system. Because one person, how many apps he will install in one mobile? Because of there is some space limitation problem, and also like Jan sir explained, like when a disaster strikes, sometimes network like mobile functions, mobile facilities are the first one to get distracted. So and even the light problem. So if you have multiple apps, you access multiple apps, you need more battery. When disasters in disaster situations, there might be situation when you don't have any power backup. So we need to have a simple one-stop, one-app solution where you can find all the warnings and informations, do's and don'ts, and that also consume low energy and bandwidth. Also, similarly, just to for your information, there are also SOPs on urban flooding given by the Ministry of Urban Health, Government of India, and it laid down in a very comprehensive manner the specific action required to be undertaken by various departments and agencies in a very in a city or town, and also organization under the district administration as well as the state government for responding to urban flooding disaster in any magnitude. Like in this, if you go through this SOPs, you will find that they have divided into pre-monsoon phase, during monsoon phase, and then post-monsoon phase. What are the action that needs to be taken? And also, if you see the flood forecasting processes, the warning issued during flood forecast consist of the following categories, like high flood level, danger zone. Like I think I'm just skipping this because of time. And also the SOPs on tsunami, if you see, like Indian Tsunami Early Warning System which comes under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, has set up a Tsunami Decision Support System, DSS, which are set up of rules to be followed for issuing a tsunami bulletin. These rules are appropriately coded in the form of software that automatically it will generate a bulletin by accessing the real-time data from the observing network. And the standard operating procedure is the set of routine activities to be followed by the staff at the Tsunami Warning Center for observation, for evaluation, for the confirmation, and also the dissemination of bulletins. And if you see the warnings, also there are also four warning code, like the green, yellow, orange, and red, which signifies green signifies threat passed, yellow signifies watch, orange alert, and the red signifies the warning. Also, if you see, like, not only during the disaster or early warning system, there are standard operating procedure for the post disaster also, like the PDNA. The overall objective of this SOPs is to put in place a standard mechanism for the state to in order to undertake a systematic and harmonized approach for conducting of post disaster need assessment as per the PDNA Indian, like India tools. This SOP, it will guide the state and its agencies or whoever is doing the PDNA in undertaking a assessment and developing a recovery and reconstruction plan of action to build back better. Also, like this one, our Jan sir has very in detail explained this today. So I'm skipping this. And also the NDRF, National Disaster Response Force. The government of India, like, they have a very efficient system for conducting to both natural and man-made disaster, including like CPR and emergencies through different emergency support function. However, NDRF, in its capacity of like a leading agency in the field of specialized disaster response, is also committed to make India resilient towards disaster. So NDRF has been carrying out various mock drills in collaboration with a range of institutions such as NIDM that all had a major role to play in terms of disaster response. And the aim of this SOP on conduct of mock exercises is to lay down the guideline for conducting mock exercises by NDRF in the utmost professional manner with objectivity. And the early warning system can face many challenges, yet the implementation of early warning system can be made more efficient if fundamental advances like advanced considerations are anticipated. Like the UNDP have 5 main areas of intervention, that is institutional and regulatory arrangement to ensure a smooth early warning process and to develop capacity among stockholders, technological solution to upgrade monitoring, forecasting, and warning infrastructure, community-based solution to empower the community at risk, and prompt and effective response to warning, and private sector engagement to develop and manage the early warning at lower cost, and with the engagement of sectorial professionals, and the international cooperations and data sharing to minimize the cost and ensure greater impact for early warning system. The first three solution that you see, that is institutional and technological community, they cover nearly every aspect of setting up of early warning system. And like institutional arrangements and regulation ensures that the enabling environment and the capacity need for the early warning process is in place, and the technology underpin the success of monitoring, forecasting, and warning insurance, and as well as its communication. And the community-based solution guarantees that warning communication it will reach communities at risk, and that the vulnerable communities are therefore prepared to like counter the risk of the hazard. And the last two that you see, the public participant engagement and international governance, these last two solutions, they can improve early warning by minimizing the cost and prompt information and exercises sharing. So with this, I will just end my presentation. And there are some of the reading materials that I would like to suggest. You can go to the website and you can see various reading materials that will also give you some ideas about the early warning systems and SOPs. Thank you very much. Okay. So I will take, since we are running short of time, I will just take one question. So this question is mentioned, like, as you have mentioned that we have an early warning system in place, and we have SOPs for almost every disaster, then why are there still so many casualties during disaster? So very good question. So see, disaster definitely cause havoc, usually like breaking the normal life, but with the help of early warning system, the magnitude of loss can be effectively mitigated. So early warning system, it differ like based on the various types of disaster. and simply put early warning system and are a warning alert before the happening of the disaster. So this is not everything. This is just the warning. So quite a number of government and other agencies, they are involved in issuing this disaster alert based on the information like that is deployed from technical know-how ranging from satellites or like I have mentioned, operations to radar to remote sensing equipment, etc. So the success of any early warning system is depends on several factors, and also the effective communication to administrators and users also with real time and reliable and timely information to enable like prompt intervention and action. And there is always some scopes for advancement and increasement and improvement. And I can see there are several questions regarding the radio, like Ashok Kumar asking, why cannot we use ham radio operators as disaster management member for emergency communication? Also, Gaurav, sir, can we, he is asking that why ham radio can elaborate on the roles of ham radio, and also from radio ala. So definitely ham radio and communication radio, they play a very tremendous role during natural disaster. Like take any disaster, take a cyclone, flood, landslide, tsunami, earthquake, anything, they have a very important role to play. However, on what I think is the level of awareness of this radio communication in India is still very low. So volunteer from communication community radio and amateur radio can become the frontline reporter in any disaster emergency, because person involved in and they are the person involved in media such as the community radio have a very close relationship with the community, and they understand the local existing environment condition, and the reality also they faced by the victim better than the journalist that is coming from the mainstream media. So they always have a very big important role to play. And for example, let us discuss the Uttarakhand case. In Uttarakhand, that it witnessed a multi-day cloudburst on June 13, leading to devastating fast flood and landslide, where around more than 4,000 villages were affected, and more than around 5,000 people also, they were presumed dead. So it became the country worst natural disasters in the tsunami. And the community radio, they were the among the first responder and were involved in broadcasting and sensitizing the vital information to the victims, and also to respond at several community stations. There was one Gram Vani. They established operating relief news lines for Uttarakhand flood victims to provide help for different communities. So they have a very important pass on the message that during this program we will be joined by distinguished speaker as Surya Prakash sir also highlighted, Rajiv Kumar Shukla sir, and also from Prasar Bharati, Sandeep sir. So they will be talking on details about this ham radios and how what role they have during disaster. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session. So at the end of today's session, I would like to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of NIDM. So at the outset, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. So I wish to express my sincere gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, ED NIDM, and Sri Chandra Sekhar, DDG DM, Department of Telecommunication, for their encouragement and support to coordinate, and also taking the coordination also for organizing this training program. I must mention a very deep sense of appreciation to our speakers of today's session, Sri S.S. Jain sir, Director, Disaster Management in Department of Telecommunication, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, Young Professional, GMR Division in NIDM, for their presence to enlighten the participant with their knowledge and experience. And I am also like to express my deep sense of appreciation to Professor Surya Prakash, the head of GMR Division NIDM, chair of this program, for his continuous support and encouragement in all our endeavors. And also, I must thank all the participants for their precious time for joining us in this training program. And also, I hope that they will also continuously join us for the remaining 2 days of the training program. And also, I am thankful to GMR division, Mr. Anil Kathet, Dr. Hajit Kaur, Sovit, and Balaji, also for making this event successful. And on behalf of NIDM and Department of Telecommunication, we wish participants to a very safe and healthy life. And also, please join us tomorrow session using the same link. And there are few questions that have participants are always confused about. So let me just clarify that your attendance is automatically recorded in Cisco WebEx platform. So whenever you log into the platform, kindly make sure that you have entered your name correctly and email ID, because your email ID will be your representative for the for your participation in the training program. And also, there I have seen many questions regarding what happened when they logged out, suppose. So you don't need to worry when you log out also, because of connection. Once you log in again, your earlier time will get added to this. So the time will keep on getting added. So you don't need to worry even if you lose connectivity and all. And feedback form, there is no feedback form today or any attendance sheet. The feedback form will be shared on the last day of the training program. And please ensure that you join us through Cisco WebEx event only. And with these words, I will conclude the today's session. Tomorrow, I hope everybody will join us in tomorrow's session using the same link. With these words, I end this today's meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you.